At Bethlehem's annual Southside Film Festival, one of the screenings I always seek out and am never disappointed by are the blocks of short films. And one of the screenings everyone was talking about last year included the work of experimental documentary filmmaker Adrienne Finelli and her film, Too Soon, Too Late. This is Musings. I'm Ken Michael. Adrienne Finelli recently completed a Master of Fine Arts degree at the University of Michigan School of Art and Design. Currently, she's a lecturer at the school and is teaching a course that she created called Home, a working seminar that explores broad concepts of home and aims to develop new work across the arts that relates to the psychological, political, and cultural meanings of home. Prior to Michigan, Finelli lived in Philadelphia, where she graduated from Temple University's Film and Media Arts program. Although she's been producing documentaries since early high school, it was during her studies at Temple where she developed her practice and methods for working with personal stories of trauma and loss. Filmmaker Adrienne Finelli.
When I was making this project, I was grieving myself, and so I found this flood footage that I acquired through a friend of mine. We have a joint archive that we collect all these home movies. It was so fitting to how I was feeling, because actually when I was in mid-production on making this piece, my maternal grandmother, who was a very real character in my life, she killed herself right before Christmas. And so my project became my life. I felt like I was living in a Charlie Kaufman screenplay, and it was just a little too insane. I couldn't distance myself, so I had to take a little break. I think before I thought that I really could heal the wounds of my family, I think the project changed radically in what I was trying to do with it. Having felt that loss so real and feeling that loss in a way that was very different than this abstract woman who was my paternal grandmother, who I only knew through these old photographs, and I would make up all these stories about through the photographs because that was what information I was given. My maternal grandmother was a real person to me. She was at every major event in my life. To have her die was very difficult, but then to have her kill herself right around the same time of year, I think it was just insanity, really.
It does sound almost like a Charlie Kaufman screenplay. You thought you were making a movie, and then you found out you were in the movie in a way.
Yes, yeah, it was very intense.
Movie's interesting, though, because it rises above the specificity of it, because it's also about the era she was from. And it comments on that without ever being didactic.
I think it's infused with feminist theory and all of this stuff, but I didn't want to put it in such a literal way. And it was sort of important. Actually, it was my Uncle Don's voice when he talks about the generation of women and it being World War II and them going off. I mean, my grandmother was in the Marines. She had college degrees. She was a woman who was ready to live life and then ended up getting married, like most women did. She was also Catholic, so they ended up having 6 children, and 6 wonderful children that I can't imagine not having in my life, and I wouldn't be here if one of them wasn't around. I think with that, all of her hopes and aspirations and dreams for herself as a woman changed. And, I think there's some of this in that era where women were given a taste of these freedoms and education, and then the 50s and 60s kind of just rewound life a little.
How much footage did you have to wade through? Hundreds and hundreds of hours? I think I heard you say that.
Yeah, I became really interested in watching things to find these in-between moments. I did another project that coincided with this film for my thesis. It was a photo installation. It was called Everything is Still. And the premise of it was to find these moments in home movies and turn them into a few still images sequenced together. And there was short narratives that went with it, but I was looking for these moments in between the smiles and waves, and so these little glimpses into like the breakdowns in family life, or just maybe the trauma that exists in these documentations that you can't really see unless you're looking closely. And there's this shot that a lot of people have referred to in the film, where there's a woman at a party and she's having a really nice time, and her partner, her husband, comes and places his hand on her shoulder and pulls her back away from that good time, and then she folds her arms and kind of, So that was actually a really healthy part of the project for me. That was the part I could really get into and obsess over and just watch. It was so enjoyable for me to find these moments. Especially after that tragic Christmas where my maternal grandmother died, it was nice to have sort of a different obsession. And then cutting the audio together was kind of a lot harder after that.
Documentary filmmaker Adrienne Finelli. For information about her work, her website is adriennefinelli.com. Musings is supported by the Dorothy and Dexter Baker Foundation. This is Musings. I'm Ken Michael, and you're tuned to WDIY, Lehigh Valley Community Public Radio.